What I'm watching today is drug pricing, and in particular, the role that pharmaceutical benefits managers, those are PBMs, play in setting those prices. Welcome now, Senator Chuck Grassley. He's chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, who this morning will lead the next in a series of hearings on what can be done about health care costs. He comes to us from Capitol Hill. Senator, welcome back. It's great to have you.
I'm glad to be with you. Our hearing today follows on 7 pharmaceutical companies that we had in maybe a month ago or 3 weeks ago. And I hope to get some information from PBMs, the role that they play, but more importantly, learn about it, because there's so much secrecy involved in the whole process, from pharmaceutical companies setting prices down to what the consumer pays. And of course, the PBMs in the middle have quite a bit to do with that.
So Senator, I'm curious, from your point of view, when we talk to drug companies and we talk to PBMs, both point the finger at one another. The PBM says, no, it's your list prices are too high, and the drug companies say, no, the reason the list prices are high is because you get such a kickback, and their word, kickback, from the PBMs. As you look into this, how do you sort that out and see exactly who's responsible?
Well, not only that, but you also have health insurance companies at the other end pointing fingers at both the people above them. And so the whole point of the hearing is to answer your question. Why should there be so much secrecy in drug pricing? The list price, real high. Rebates, $170 billion, I think, last year. Who gets the benefit of those rebates? Then you end up with a lower price after the rebates. Why isn't the lower price good for everybody?
So as I understand it, the Secretary of HHS, Mr. Azar, whom I've interviewed, says we've got a solution, at least as far as the pharmaceutical benefits paid by the government goes, which is we're just going to ban those rebates. We're going to say you can't do that at all. This is, again, for Medicare, Medicaid, government paid for pharmaceutical benefits. Why doesn't that apply more generally? Is that a possible solution for you?
Yeah. Well, it is a good solution for me. There's some questions I still have about what Secretary Azar announced last Thursday, but I think he's headed in the right direction to benefit the consumers. But what he's doing can just apply to the government programs. If we're going to apply it across the board to benefit every consumer, including those that aren't on government programs, then we're going to have to pass some legislation to accomplish the same goal that he's trying to accomplish.
And Senator Grassley, there's a lot of partisanship up on Capitol Hill. That's not an entirely new thing. Is there partisanship over this issue? I mean, do your Democratic colleagues, like, for example, Mr. Wyden, Senator Wyden, do they tend to agree with you by and large on these issues?
Yes, and I've had conversations with members of the House of Representatives that are Democrats, tend to go along the same line as I do on these things. I think we have a real opportunity for bipartisanship. That's what it's going to take, at least in the United States Senate, to get something done. But I also would applaud President Trump, because last June, you know, he gave a speech about we're going to get drug prices down, and then you referred to what Secretary Azar has done so far. He's done a lot of other things to carry out the president's direction, but there's going to have to be some legislation passed, and that's where this bipartisan effort in the Congress can work very well in with what President Trump is trying to do last June.
So, Senator, I mean, when you have the President of the United States, plus the Democrats, plus the Republicans, all basically agreeing on something, you'd think it would get done. At the same time, we've seen all sorts of possible reforms in the healthcare area get beaten back, and let's be frank, by lobbyists. There's a lot of money. How realistic is it to expect we would actually get legislation, and how fast could we get legislation on this subject?
Well, when I announced maybe before Christmas that we were headed down this road, not only on pharmaceuticals to get the price down and more transparency in it so the marketplace can work, it would be our goal to take it all the way through other players in the healthcare delivery system. But to answer your question now more directly, once we announced that, we had all kinds of players come to our offices to say that they're willing to sit down and work with us, and that's a necessary first step to find out whether or not they are going to be intellectually honest and follow through with that.
You know the legislative calendar so well as the political calendar. Is it realistic to think we could have this calendar year?
I think if you don't get it done during 2019, there's a lot of things that are very legitimate, but they're much harder to get done during an election year, and particularly during a presidential election year.
Let me ask you one other question, and that has to do with trade, because we had this announcement of the USTR, Mr. Lighthizer, yesterday about a proposal for tariffs on $11 billion worth of imports from the EU. You in the past have had some questions about the president's authority, whether he may be going a little too far, whether it should be curtailed. Do you support this particular invocation, potentially, of Section 301?
Yes, and that is not inconsistent with what I said about what I think was really a subterfuge for the use of some tariffs that the president's already done. He can do that under our U.S. law, but we're talking about the World Trade Organization. We're talking about the rules of law in trade, or the rules of trade, laws of trade, whatever you want to call it. Those sort of rules and laws are very necessary for predictability and certainty in international trade. So when we took a case several years ago now to the WTO against Airbus and Europe subsidizing it, we won that case. So it's perfectly legitimate for us to put on what's called countervailing duties. They're legal duties that we can put on products from countries that subsidize and don't live by the decisions of the WTO, just like Europe didn't want beef from the United States going into their country. So we won the case against Europe. They put countervailing duties on against our beef.
There's been a lot of talk about possible trade war with China that may be getting resolved. Talk to the business community, the financial markets community right now. Should we be concerned about a possible trade war with Europe? Because as you say, there's been this WTO issue. It's been pending for 15 years. In the meantime, this is right at the time we're having delicate negotiations with Europe.
I think the answer is no, because I think the only legitimate tariffs the president's talking about putting on under national security law, that he has the authority to do it, would be on automobiles. And it's pretty difficult to say that the production of automobiles is a national security issue. I don't think so. But on the other hand, we would like to sit down and negotiate with Europe. We want to negotiate everything, manufacturing, agriculture, services. They don't want to deal at all with agriculture, and that's a non-starter for us.